Big Rob from Celeb. Oh, I've done it again. CelebHeights.com. Here to talk about my favourite NFL player, Shawne Merriman. One of the most controversial heights on CelebHeights.com. I think I get something like 2,500 comments just in this one guy's height. Why is he so controversial? Basically, because in the distant past, he was described in newspapers as a 6'2" guy. Here we have a newspaper. San Diego Chargers, defensive linebacker, Maryland College, 6'2", 275 pounds. But at the draft itself, Merriman was supposedly measured at 6'4" and 3/8. You know, that's a pretty big discrepancy. And he's doubled down this. He's claimed on Twitter 6'5", 6'5", 270 several times. And also, he done a height measurement on Instagram. Let's just check this height measurement out, right? So here we have him, hoping he doesn't need some surgery. He's at some sort of a clinic's physician office or something. And here we go. Under the stadiometer, the nurse calls out 6'4.5". And she asks him, does that sound right? You know, I see a big problem there. If you're doing the measuring, surely you should know what the person is. You're not asking the person actually being measured, is that right? And let's see what Merriman says.
6'4.5"? No,
Yeah.
6'5".
Okay, well, we can
Is
put
it?
6'5".
6'5"?
Yeah,
Okay.
he thinks he's 6'5", but you know, he'll take that 6'4.5". Now, to be fair to Shawne, he's filming this on his iPhone, so it's tricky. You know, if you get somebody else filming you, you can look at the feet, zoom up, and actually see the marking on the stadiometer. We don't see what the marking is. We're relying on the nurse telling the truth. And Shawne being barefoot. Who knows? But let's check out some of Shawne's photos with other celebrities or NFL players and see, is 6'4.5" or 6'2.5" more likely? So first up, we've got Tim Tebow, another fantastic NFL player who was measured just over 6'2". And look at Shawne. You know, he passes for 6'4.5" there. Next up, Peyton Manning, measured just over 6'5", and Shawne, well, he's slightly closer to the camera there, but he's kind of hunched in the neck. That's one thing with Merriman. If you look at a lot of photos of him, he typically doesn't actually stand at his tallest. He's got a kind of hunched appearance. So I can definitely see sometimes how he looks like a 6'2", 2.5 guy. With Peyton, maybe almost 6'4", possibly. Next up, Mark Sanchez, who again in the NFL was measured around 6'2". Merriman looks about 6'4" there, but here's an interesting photograph with your former favourite president, Donald J. Trump. What do you think? Now Trump, on CelebHeights, I give him under 6'1". At the time of this photo, he might have been pushing 6'1", probably almost that mark. Merriman is at most 2 inches taller, but is he standing tall? Sometimes it's hard to tell. He could have his hip bent, he could be just slouching a bit in the back, and that's easily another inch of a difference. Oh, you know how we talked about Mark Sanchez? He met Trump too, and he was comfortably taller. You know how CelebHeights, it can be confusing. If you look at Sanchez with Trump, and then we go back to Merriman with Trump, and then we look at Sanchez and Merriman. Yeah, right, moving on. Joey Boza, 6'5.25". Merriman looks like he's standing tall. However, you just don't know with his knees. Sometimes he does bend them. He looks there with Joey, almost 6'4", pretty close to it. Definitely not I wouldn't say he was a 6'2.5" guy there. Next up, some celebrities. One of my favourite actors, Brad Pitt, doing his good deed, helping out on the streets of LA or something like that. Anyway, here we've got Shawne with Brad. What do you reckon? That looks like a good 4.5 inches. Now Pitt, I would say, at worst, is just under 5'11". But if you notice something, look at Merriman's knee. His left knee is quite bent and his feet are flat. So he's definitely dropping height there with Brad. I just cannot see that guy 6'2.5" there. Next up, a guy I met, one of the world's best ever boxers, Mike Tyson. Now Tyson looks like he's standing pretty well there. He's a good 5'10" guy. Let's not underbill Mike, for goodness sake. I met him, remember. And Shawne, I mean, he's 4.5 inches taller, surely. And he's got a pretty big lean there. Now that lean could easily knock off 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches. You can definitely make a case for him being 6'4" there. Next up, one of the world's most respected martial artists, Steven Seagal. Now this is a strange photograph because it looks like Seagal is edging Merriman out slightly. Now I met Seagal, I'd put him pretty close to 6'3" today, and his peak around 6'4". So I'd say with Seagal, Merriman looks slightly smaller, but there's a slight tilt in the camera, and again, Merriman's posture sometimes is tricky. Next up, future President Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Now it's pretty clear there. Both of them may be slightly loose posture, but Merriman beats out The Rock. I'd say by about 1 inch, at least there. He's got his head tilted down slightly, and The Rock maybe slightly tilted up. Yeah. No, I mean The Rock, most people agree The Rock is under 6'3" nowadays, maybe 6'2.5". In his prime, definitely a good 6'3" guy. Another NFL player, Terry Crews. Solid 6'2". Merriman, he's over 6'3" there, maybe brushing 6'4". Both probably got a slightly leaning posture. So, I think we've seen enough of Shawne Merriman to conclude that he's probably not 6'2.5", but he might not be 6'4.5". I'm going to go right in the middle and say he's over 6'3", but not quite 6'4". What do you guys think? Is Merriman telling the truth? Was that measurement of 6'4.5" in bare feet? Thanks for watching, and keep walking tall like Big Rob Paul.